and welcome to Rayn's Cryptids, Myths, and Folklore. I'm Rayn, and today we're going to be talking about the Goatman, or Faun. They seem to have a lot of similarity, and I think they could be one and the same, and I'll explain why as we go through. Now, let's start with the two oldest sightings in America for the Goatman, and that is 1969 and 1970. For the Faun, it dates with the Greek and Roman mythology, 2nd BC. So when you've got a history and everything, there's a lot of things that could be different, a lot of that changes or anything like that. But I think these two are one and the same. I just think that they went quiet for a while, maybe. I don't know. Let's continue on. Description. Goatman is that of half man upper body and goat lower body. So basically his legs and lower torso would be considered a goat. Now there are some sightings that state that it has a goat head. And so with the horns, goat head with the horns. And very tall. From what I understand, they're very tall. So anywhere between 7 to 10 feet tall, I think. Now, the Faun was basically the same. Half man, upper body, and then goat lower body. The biggest difference there is it just had horns. It had a human face, but with horns. But, see, again, you're talking about a hybrid. And any type of hybrid would be considered... when you have different breeds of something and you're trying to, you breed them together, like accidentally bred the corgi with the pit bull, you're going to get something different each time. They're not going to all look alike. It's like striped cats and solid colored cats. If you take a striped mama and a solid daddy, you still could get stripeds, but you get different variations. And the same could be with the hybrid Goatman. So that's the reason why I feel like these could still be related. Now, I didn't put the relation in there with the satyr, and which that one will have a video of its own, and there is a huge reason for that. And I'll explain that one when I do that video. Now, moving on. Now, the America's Goatman is described often having erratic behavior, predatory diet, and being very angry. They scream like a shrill goat. Now, some say that they think that they're nocturnal. I don't know about nocturnal. Even one of my sighting stories shows that it's out in the day. But maybe when it's trying to be aggressive towards somebody, that it's nocturnal, because it could see you better than you can see it at night. So, I mean, if you're going to attack somebody, do you want to go in broad daylight where they see you coming? I don't think so. So that could be the reason why. Also, it's believed that they fear fire. So if you come across the Goatman, throw some flames at it. But at least that's what they say. The Faun now was considered peaceful and even foolish. So I wonder if they could be the same, or maybe it's just the reason why there is a difference between them now is because maybe a human burned them. Pardon the pun, but maybe that's what happened. Humans did something awful to them. And so now they don't care for us and try to avoid us now, which would be completely understandable. Now, the name Faun comes from the word faunus, the name of an ancient Italic deity of forest fields, herds, and was also associated to the Pan-Greek god. Now, about some sighting stories, I will start with the early ones first, the Poplick monster and the Maryland Goatman. But I will also share some that are not as popular but people have been speaking on a lot. There's a lot of places where you can hear these sighting stories, and I'm hoping I will be one of them too. So let's get started. But first, if you have any sighting stories for any type of cryptids or anything, please send them to me. I love sighting stories. My email should be down below. Also, I will be putting up a map up here of these sighting stories that I'm fixing to read for where, around about where they're at. So you can see where they're at. And as any time that I update with more sighting stories or have to update information on the Goatman or the Faun, and when I do that, I will update my map as well. So, because I love being able to see exactly where these things are. It's a good information. Now on to the sighting stories. The Poplik Monster, or Goatman. This story starts in 1969 in Kentucky, the United States. It was reported to live near or beneath a railroad trestle bridge. According to some accounts, it either used hypnosis or used voice mimicry to lure its trespassers to their death by an oncoming train. So basically, it would trick it onto the train tracks right as a train was coming. Some said it would attack with using an axe, or even jump on top of cars, scaring them. Sadly, there has been a number of deaths and accidents at the bridge, and it's pretty sad. Goatman was even the subject of a film in 1988. It was 16 minutes long, and the railway was not too happy about this movie because they felt like it would cause more attraction to the bridge. Now in 1988, a couple of young men was crossing the trestle bridge when one was killed by the train and the other was severely injured. In 94, a man was killed after his ATV flipped, trapping him on the tracks. Now, I don't really know much about ATVs, and especially back in 94 style ATVs. Are they heavy? Or, would it be, if you were young, would it be really hard for you to get that off of you? If you have any idea, let me know. Comment below. But he got trapped and didn't make it. 2000, another fell to his death. 2016, 2 tourists from Ohio went to search for the Goatman at this bridge. One was hit by the train while the other survived by hanging off the trestle bridge. In 2019, 2 teenagers, one died on scene by the train while the other survived when they were near the bridge. So they weren't even actually on the bridge, they were just near the bridge, and one died and one survived. So that Goatman and for the Poplik Monster is quite mean. So let's move on to the Maryland Goatman. Throughout the 70s, several Maryland residents found dead dogs around their neighborhoods. People became frightened, and different versions explaining the events. People quickly blamed the entire thing on the railroad tracks, that the dogs were just unlucky and being hit by the trains. Although I don't know about that. I mean, I haven't heard of very many animal deaths by train. Of course, that doesn't mean there isn't any. It just means I haven't heard very many. So, I don't know. But other residents, and many of them, claim to be eyewitnesses of the events. There are so many versions to count that we're not going to go through all of them. But one of the claims was that a scientist who worked for the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center, he was doing experiments on goats when it went bad, causing him to become a mutant Goatman. Now, I don't believe that this, I mean, it could have happened, but I don't believe Goatman or Faun or anything like that is like created by a science experiment because of the Faun, dating back to 2nd BC. Okay, this has history, long history. So in turn, I believe that It wasn't a science experiment. Now let's move on to some not so popular stories that haven't been heard everywhere. This story is by an older gentleman who lived by himself in the Appalachian Mountains. He was not much of a believer of ghosts, supernatural things, but he couldn't deny the Goatman, for he had seen him with his own eyes on many occasions. It was very violent, and it attempted to take his life on many occasions. From what he learned of it, it showed up at night, so this is where he believed it was nocturnal, from dusk to dawn. But again, if you're going to attack somebody, are you going to go in the brightest of days? If you're going to their domain? No. You would much rather do it under the cover of night, so that could be the possible reason why he only attacked at night. But it also didn't like fire, so he lit torches all around his house to help protect him. He claimed he had been living at his house for 30 years, but it was only the last 10 years this Goatman had been coming around. So, only for 10 years, so I wonder what brought it to the area in the first place. Although he also believes it has a cycle, because it only came every few years and would terrorize him for short bursts of time, and then would leave and we'd be gone. So, I don't know. For the cycle thing, I would have to say that, maybe it had, what is the word I'm looking for? Not cycle, but like seasonal type deal. Migration. Yeah, migration. Maybe it has a migration pattern. I don't know. But so far, the old man is surviving. Last I heard. Now another story is a lady and her husband close to Texarkana, which is Texas-Arkansas border. Texas side, though. She ended up finding the Goatman strangling her Rottweiler dog and hollered for her husband. Husband jumped into action, grabbed the rifle, shot it in the head. Now, it didn't faze it. You'd think it would have killed it, but it didn't. It didn't faze it. It stunned it enough to where it let go of the Rottweiler and ran back out into the woods, which is a good thing. And they haven't seen it since, but the husband says he can hear it scream sometimes. Not all the time, but once in a while, and sometimes it's far off. So again, you can, kind of a migration type thing, far off, close, but not, and they didn't hear them all the time, not every night or anything like that, but sometimes. So there again, you've got kind of a migration type of thing, maybe. Maybe. Now, my next sighting comes from an officer at the time. This is in Maine. He was driving in a rural area when this thing could be seen standing up next to a field, in a field next to a road. We can get this right with words. But in a field next to the road. The officer got a full look at it and said first he thought it was a person wearing a costume or a prop. But the more he stared at it, he realized it was far too realistic, and it did have an old-style axe. In his police car, he slowed down to get a real good look at it, and then noticed that it wasn't paying attention to him or his car. In the end, the officer got out of there, and probably smartly so, too. Now, for my last story, in Pennsylvania, a man in his 30s had been hiking when he encountered a strange smell and a feeling. He said you could feel the air become dense and humid, like a thunderstorm rolling through, even the smell, like a thunderstorm fixing to roll through. That's how it felt to him, except it was a clear, bright, sunny sky day. No wind, just bright and sunny. Then, for a brief moment, the air surrounding him from head to toe became filled with static, electricity. The hairs on his body stood up. It may have lasted for about 45 seconds, but afterwards his gut instinct was telling him that he needed to get out of there. And always listen to your gut instinct on that. So he decided to head back to his car, which was 3 miles away. On his way back is when he saw it, the Goatman, which to him looked like a demon. He had always thought the stories of the Goatman was fake up until then. He says it was easily 9 to 10 feet tall. It seemed to be making its way across a large ridge and wasn't paying any mind to him. Had it looked over to his direction, it would have easily spotted him because he had nothing to hide behind. So he was out in the open, and if this thing would have just turned its head, it would have saw him. But it continued off into the woods and was gone, and it was going pretty fast, at a very fast pace. It appeared to be on mission, but he never saw it again, and he even went back out there sometime later and never came across it again. Now, in this last sighting story, in the thoughts of the denseness of the air, the humid, the static electricity, and everything like that, and then all of a sudden seeing this Goatman, here's a possible thought. Portal. It came out of a portal. It could explain why we don't see him all the time. It could explain why so many different answers would be because of portals. But I don't know. That's just a theory. What are your thoughts? Let me know down below. And also, again, if you have any sighting stories, please send me an email with them, or even comment them into the comments. I would love to hear them. Thank you. And now, let's move on to our next subject, superstition for thought. But before then, please like and subscribe. I would appreciate it. Now, superstition for thought. Today's superstition will be walking under a ladder. Now, it is a very common superstition all over the world. Everybody knows not to walk under a ladder. It's bad luck, or it could ruin your life. For dating purposes, best I could find is Middle Ages, Ancient Egypt, and deep roots in religious aspects. Now, for the Middle Ages, it was having a ladder leaned up against the wall. It resembled the gallows. Ladders used in the gallows to get a person that's going to be hanged up to the rope. So they would also sometimes, because apparently this was a lot older than this, I personally think, when it comes to the gallows theory, because why would they have them walking under a ladder before they'd walk them up the ladder to be hanged if it wasn't already bad luck to walk under a ladder? That's a thought. But it was also thought that if you walked them under the ladder and then hanged them, they would haunt that very spot where that ladder was. So, I don't know. Now, for the Egyptians, they believed that when walking under a ladder, people could chance upon the gods and goddesses. And catching them at the wrong time, you could anger them, which wouldn't be good. They also believed that within the space between the ladder and wall, there lived spirits, both good and bad. It was forbidden to walk under the ladder, as anyone who would disturb the perfect balance and in turn incur the wrath of these spirits? I think not. So that's the Egyptians. Now, for the religious aspect, the Holy Trinity consisting of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost holds an important symbolism in Christianity. This led to the number 3 as well as the triangle to be held sacred. Walking under a ladder was considered blasphemous, crime worthy of summoning the devil into the life of a person. So, which is also a sin to the Holy Spirit. So in turn, you don't want to walk under a ladder. But There is also some reverse the bad luck for walking under the ladder. Like, one is saying bread and butter while visualizing visualizing it as you're walking under the ladder. Bread and butter. I don't know. Okay. But there's that one. Then there's also have your hands make a fig sign as you do it. And then another one, walk backwards, back underneath it to reverse that bad luck. So if you walked underneath it, then walk backwards. And maybe it would work. I don't know. I don't know if that would work so well, but nonetheless, that's our superstition for thought. Just don't walk under the ladder. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining me for this episode. I hope you'll join me again. Have a good evening. Blessed be.